Hi all, I have another very exciting game to show you, Leela ID 11198 against Fire 7.1. So Fire is one of the top chess engines in the world. This was a fast and furious time control of 40 moves per 2 minutes with a 2-second increment per move. Let's see what happened. D4 from Leela. We go into the Gruenfeld Defence, which became the most favoured opening of Garry Kasparov when he was playing black against Anatoly Karpov. That was after a phase he had lost some games in the Tarrasch and switched to the Gruenfeld as the weapon of choice and helped popularise it actually at Super GM level. So here knight takes, b takes, bishop g7, and now knight f3. This is not what Karpov played against him, which was bishop c4 and usually knight e2. And we have games where basically, sometimes it's useful to do this, to not put the knight on f3 because of this potential pin, and there's pressure on d4 and the diagonal in general. We see c5, the rook gets out of the way, and we've seen some Gruenfeld examples already, so Leela is kind of a specialist in this particular treatment, getting the rook out of the way, preparing a key pawn sacrifice. So d5 here, this offers the c3 pawn, and Fire does take that. So as Kasparov says, when your king side is on fire, like when your house is on fire, you don't worry about a pawn on the queen side. So anyway, bishop d2, bishop takes d2 check, because now two pieces are attacked. If the bishop drops back, then we just take here. So it has to run with the check here. And now we have knight a5. As we've seen before, theoretically, this has also been seen in some over-the-board games, and black can play e5 here with some dynamic compensation if that's taken, but if white ignores that, this is probably best with an edge for white. So anyway, knight a5, and Leela goes for it with h4. This is just classic Leela attacking chess. f6, h5, and now g5. This looks a little bit awkward, this pawn chain. Can it be undermined? Well, Leela actually plays e5 here, and we have b6. Just to check a few things out though before b6, if we look at g4, there's actually knight h4. If black's really greedy, check, and this could be a total disaster. Knight g6 activating this rook or winning the exchange, for example, like this. It could be a total disaster for black, getting checkmated. So black has to try and keep solid here. This move g4 doesn't really, it's a bit unstable. So we have b6, rook d1, king h8, and now queen c3 targeting the king on that diagonal, and potentially threatening to take a knight takes g5 because of that pinned pawn. So black reinforces g5, but it's at a cost, isn't it? These light squares. So yeah, can Leela actually exploit the light squares in this position? Well, actually she castles here and just puts the rooks together rather neatly for a moment. We have rook c8, and now actually bishop a6 with a potentially useful tempo, because now the rook's behind this pawn now, clearly. Rook b8. Queen d3 is played now, wanting to go into queen g6. Even though the bishop might be trappable, there's no time at the moment. So queen g6 really needs to be addressed. Black plays bishop e8, addressing that potential invasion. Just to quickly show some other aspects, well, so say bishop c8. Let's put that on the board why this is destructive. Even if black wins a bishop, this is just very destructive here. After knight takes, the king could just be peeled open, and there is actually a rook lift available to white, bypassing the bishop. So with rook g3, and that's mate there. So say black plays queen d6, offering the queen. This is just the best moves. Basically, it's a nightmare. Yeah. So basically, there is an urgency to stop queen g6. So we have bishop e8, and now d6 actually, and the rooks look very nice behind these two pawns, undermining the pawn chain. f5 is played, so this is a critical juncture as well, where you might ask some other questions about this particular position. It looks very harmonious, and black's got kind of a misplaced knight, disconnection issues, king safety issues, light and square issues. But let's say we ask e takes d6. It seems here that e takes would be the strongest, with support for rook e7 and queen h7 mating. So say c4, we can keep an eye on h7, and then play rook e7, threatening to checkmate. And then here, threatening now to take and then check again. This is devastating now because of the potential of rook e8. So here, rook e8 check is just winning. So there's variations where this is very, very dangerous. Even ef might even be good for white as well, but e takes seems to be the strongest with the idea of rook e7 basically. So it's a very, very dangerous scenario. So f5 seems a bit defeatist in some way because the mobility now is increased. These pawns are still together in the centre. So it does seem a bit strange. Just actually before we go on there, let's also check f takes e5 in this position. d7 would be strong because here actually knight takes g5 threatens mate on 1. This is interesting. Rook takes e5, and the king's actually too bare, believe it or not, in this position with the pawn on d7. This is really an interesting tactical situation. For example, bishop takes, there's check, check, and actually the king's just so bare it's getting checkmated. Yeah, and instead of f takes e5, let's also look at this bishop takes. Now here, this is actually an additional target to factor in. If Leela in this variation can play a move, I think she would find a move which not only makes a great benefit of h7, but also this bishop. And the move is queen f5 for both bishop d3 and queen h3 to be threats. And this is actually it seems to be absolutely winning for white as well. I'll give you some examples. b5 to try and at least stop the bishop coming back. Queen h3 is pretty destructive because then we've got d takes and the queen's overloaded, and then we end up getting basically this kind of position is absolutely crushing. Absolutely doesn't bear thinking about. Let's have a look at again after queen f5 with, for example, knight c6, bishop d3 threatening queen h7. So this is probably why black wants to shut down this diagonal. I mean, it's one of the reasons. Queen h3. Taking here is destructive again. E takes. Check here is winning. So if rook takes, queen takes f6. And if king h8, then check, taking on f7. And rook d6, forget about the bishop. This is again a weak king. Bang, check, check. And it's all falling to bits for black. So there are a lot of variations here. So look at 23 queen e8 as another shot. So we're saying in this variation queen e8 now. Just to give a gist, bishop b5 is possible. This line is very interesting because of the passed pawns, the potential d takes and e takes. Yeah, the queen's also leaning over to support these pawns here, and this is absolutely crushing now with f7 on the way, things like that. But in fact, rook d8 here does the job very well. So for example here, and it's very nice. So all these variations, yeah, just show the devastation of this position. If this is another possibility, e6. So queen h3, g4. So basically, yeah, if you're wondering why this f5 was played in this position, it does seem extremely dangerous. This queen f5 concept in many of the variations. So e6 was played, and now king h7. And David Grosvenor thought this position was pretty neat, actually, worthy of an Instagram picture. So if you're on Instagram, you might want to take a picture here, because look at the rooks in the center. Nice, classic rooks. Two pawns side by side as well. A very good-looking position. So remember to hashtag Kingscrusher, KC Chess, Leela Chess, Chess Game, etc. Thanks very much. So here, okay. What is happening here? If instead of king h7, if queen takes d6, then check is a killer, and we're hitting the queen. So that's probably why the king wants to get out of that diagonal. This is an example. If bishop takes h5 instead, knight e5 is strong here. This position, after check here, this is actually crushing. Because, for example, these pawns are just crashing through. After d takes e7, white can afford to check here and ignore even taking the queen back, just going for the kill, like this. So yeah, this is a very, very dangerous position where king h7 was played. So first it was f5 and then king h7 hiding behind the f5 pawn for dear life. And knight e5 was played down, queen takes d6, which gives rise to discovery attacks with this rook. Queen b1 is chosen, so hitting the queen like this. And now, yeah, mopping up the pawns, but at some cost now because of another discovery attack, and also hitting the rook. So the queen and rook are attacked. Now queen f6 was chosen, and here a really nice attacking tactical move was played. Instead of just taking the rook on f8, can you see what white can play, which is maybe even more crushing? If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video, what would you play in this position? Okay, rook e6, very, very nice. So if takes, then there's knight takes f8, winning the house, king, queen there. So bishop takes was played, giving up the queen. On queen f7, there's also just rook takes e7, winning the queen. Same with, well, queen g7, let's have a look. Rook takes e7 is also a big advantage to white. If ever, yeah, it's just a gigantic advantage. So yeah, the queen was actually given up. HG here, and this position, yeah, black's falling to bits basically. If rook takes, then there was bishop d3. So now f5 protected, but yeah, this is just it's a material advantage for white. And the game continued a bit more like this. Okay, queen c7 there. A bit of technique. So a5 undermining the pawn chain now of black on the queen side. Yeah, black is offering some resistance, so that's needed. So queen c3, yeah. Bishop coming back to hit that fragmented pawn. f6. Now, very interesting move, f6. Basically, if e takes, king f7 was played, but if e takes, then there's check, and check here, and then check here, winning the rook. So very nice move, f6. King f7, and now check here, queen c5, check here. And after king f6, it was actually adjudicated as a win for white. In this final position, let's actually clarify a little bit further. White can swing the queen across with queen h7. So, for example, now knight e6, taking this key pawn here with check, and putting more pressure on the rook and knight to hold each other. Yeah, there's a bit of a resistance going on. Queen e5, though, is very painful. If this configuration happens, black might have to jettison this other pawn, and then it simplifies further, and it can get into a completely simplified, just winning king and pawn ending, like this, for example, where the king can be driven out expertly, and then queening. So that could be an example game continuation from the final position. Okay, comments, questions, likes, shares appreciated. Thanks very much.